Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. This is such a beautiful building, and it's my pleasure to be on this panel with two of my old friends who I've had a professional relationship with for many, many years, sometimes an antagonistic relationship, but two of the real leaders in the Bay Area. I don't think that even needs to be qualified just by sports. I mean, they're leaders who have helped to change the culture and the landscape of the Bay Area. But first, before we get started, I wanted to we have in the crowd Daniel Lurie, who, as you know, it has been a very big week for the Bay Area. Some big news coming. And Daniel was, of course, the head of the committee that brought Super Bowl 50 to the Bay Area for February of 2016. Could you say a few words, Daniel? Congratulations.
Sure. First, the Bay Area is going to be hosting Super Bowl 50. I said that last night. We had a gathering to thank everybody, the committee that includes Jim Wunderman, Lloyd Dean, who we couldn't have done this without. I said it out loud for the first time last night, and Jed and I were talking about it on the flight home. These things have a way of not sinking in, but I said it last night, and then I said it again, and this is the third time I said it, and it feels better and better every time. This does not get done without Jed's leadership. To build a stadium in Northern California, to build a stadium, a football stadium in California these days is not very easy. Larry knows a little something about that as well. So you're going to hear from two unbelievable leaders. As Ann, you said, these are great leaders. Jed and Mayor Lee gave me the opportunity to lead this. I'm humbled. It was a regional effort. Jed and I and Mayor Lee and Mayor Matthews and the whole committee came together in a way that I don't think we've seen in quite a long time here in the Bay Area. And it's a testament to also our business community and all of you that the NFL saw fit to bring the Bowl to the Bay because we have a lot to offer. You all have created a community that is incredible. We're going to show them what we have, and we're also going to promote, and this is a little plug for me and for the work that I do day in and day out, and that Jed's on the board at Tipping Point, and Larry's been a huge supporter of Tipping Point. 25% of every dollar raised is going to go back into our community. We are going to help lift up our community and those people for whom things are not quite there yet. And we have a lot of work to do, and what better stage than Super Bowl 50. Jed, congratulations to you. Mayor Lee, Mayor Matthews, Mayor Reed of San Jose, thank you. Enjoy.
Well, that kind of gets us to where we're going to start, which is what an incredible time this is in the Bay Area right now. I think one of the talking points, at least in my line of work, is this the greatest year, beginning with last fall, in Bay Area sports history? And I think, us old-timers could maybe say, well, 1989 was a pretty good year. There have been other great years, but I think that right now that we're in a real renaissance for sports in the Bay Area. And I'm just curious, Larry, how would you describe the state, as the elder statesman on this panel, how would you describe the state of professional...
Can we do
professional sports in the Bay Area?
Okay, I guess we can't do a check on that. I think it's actually pretty obvious. First of all, congratulations.
You have more hair than I do, though, so it's all right.
Congratulations to Jed and Daniel. Just a tremendous. I think when other sports franchises watch a really well-oiled machine like yours was in bringing home Super Bowl 50, it's just we're proud. I think the success of the other franchises lifts everybody. To your question, and look, I think that it's this great alignment right now with really every franchise pretty much operating at sort of peak efficiency, if you will. We're growing more sports fans in general in this community, which is really important, I think. People are walking around with Giants and 49ers and Warriors and Sharks jerseys, paraphernalia. And the seasons overlap a little bit. We're not back in the days where I grew up where there was separation, but that's okay. And I think we know in September, people are walking around talking about the Giants and then the 49ers on Sunday, and then early in the baseball season, we've got the Warriors and Sharks playoffs. So there's that overlap, which makes it even, I think, kind of makes it more combustible. And everybody's talking about at our games during the week when the Warriors and Sharks had playoff games, and I think you saw this if you were out at, I don't know if you were at our place or not, you may have been at the other games. People were just gathered around the televisions watching the Warriors and Sharks. So I just think it's all adds to basically, kind of when you cut through it, the quality of life in our community. It's a quality of life thing, and what Daniel does on an everyday basis, addressing issues that relate to poverty, I think that there's a spiritual uplift that we're privileged to provide the community in our line of work.
Larry, several years ago, you had a quote that I always have found interesting. I can't remember. I spent some time trying to dig it up unsuccessfully, but it was either when the 49ers had just parted ways with a coach who had taken them to the playoffs, or when you parted ways with Dusty Baker, who had just taken you to the World Series. But it was something in the regards to, and I think you put it back on the 49ers. You said the standard was set so high that every other team in the Bay Area keeps trying to meet that standard, that the 49ers had, with their Super Bowl dynasty years, had set the standard. I'm wondering, is that true? Do you, and Jed, I'd like your response too, do you feel that there's a synergy between the different teams and a good competitive quality that you're all, when one team starts getting good and maybe wins a World Series, everyone feels the need to raise their game?
I think so. I'll just say, just on that, did say that, and I remember Dusty, especially, he would go down and visit Bill Walsh.
Oh, yeah.
And it's almost like a best practices sort of approach, where you say, even though the sports are very different, there's a lot of management similarities, and there's also a lot of psychological similarities in terms of the way you approach a game and motivation and preparation, et cetera. So absolutely, I think I think there is kind of that synergy.
I mean, first, the Giants have been fantastic, and the last date that I had with my wife before she delivered our baby was at a World Series game. And we were sitting there next to Kenny Lofton, and she was over a week late. And I asked Kenny, I said, I grew up in Youngstown. I watched you with the Indians for a long time, and I've been a big fan. I said, can you still catch? And he's like, yeah, I can play. And I said, well, because you might have to catch a baby. And his jaw just dropped. But, I mean, I think you saw it in Boston earlier in the 2000s, where you had the Patriots and the Red Sox really pushing each other. And I think you see it here, where the Sharks have been fantastic for the last decade. You've got the Warriors that had a great run this year, and the Niners and the Giants. It's not that we're competing with each other, because I find, especially on Twitter, which I know you're on Twitter, I'd say there's probably 75 to 80% overlap between Niners and Giants fans, and even more so with the Warriors. And you see it all across the board. And for us, we're not competing with the Giants. It's like every time they do better, more people are excited about the 49ers. And it just keeps raising the bar. But you do keep pushing yourself because you want to be part of this magical time.
Right, and part of the conversation. I mean, if you're not winning, people are probably ignoring you, right?
Yeah.
Can I tell a little secret?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the right place to tell a
Nobody's
secret.
listening.
So when Alex Smith was wearing the Giants hat after the SF hats after his press conferences post-game, this is not a secret. I think he was fined or threatened to be fined by the NFL because they have a deal to wear certain licensed merchandise. So we sent a little note. I don't know if this ever got across Jed's desk. A little note to Alex that said that wear the Giants hat again and we'll pay the fine. And so we created, what was great is we created this hashtag SF United. And I know it was wonderful. Jim Harbaugh invited Willie Mays down to your camp. And then I actually believe in the aftermath of the Alex Smith Capgate, if you will, Bruce Bochy wore a 49ers hat at his pregame dugout press conference did not get fined.
Right, right. He did not get fined. Well, let's talk a little
I'm
bit
not going
about.
to say anything or else I might get fined.
You work for the league that really likes to fine people. Let's talk a little bit about this kind of synergy and cooperation, because that is maybe a new development that we're seeing in the Bay Area, especially with the Super Bowl bid. I mean, rather than hurt feelings over the fact that the 49ers are moving out of the city of San Francisco, there's a cooperative effort that resulted in the Super Bowl coming here. There's a synergy with the Giants. I mean, do you feel as though at this stage there's kind of a maybe something that didn't exist a few years ago, that there's a better understanding that if everyone works together, that it will benefit everyone in the Bay Area?
I think so, and I mean, you see it with Jim and what he's doing with the Bay Area Council. I mean, we're trying to bring a region together, and I mean, I've said this about the Super Bowl bid. You know, you have 3 mayors that aren't always aligned on everything that they do, working 100% together to bring the Super Bowl to the Bay Area. And everybody's going to benefit in a different way, but when we all come together, the Bay Area can't be stopped. I mean, when you look at the unbelievable things that are going on in the Silicon Valley, when you look at the great things that are going on with companies in San Francisco, the great things that are going on in sports, I mean, it really is, this is the best place in the world right now. I mean, this is like Florence during the Renaissance, and you're going to continue to see, I say that, but I think it's true.
Nice analogy.
And I mean, when you look at the things that are going on here, I think you take those principles that are embraced in Northern California, and you say, you know, if my coach, who might not be the easiest person to deal with on a daily basis, you know, your coach that you know
Might be,
you know, but you don't understand how much pressure those guys are under, and for them to be able to talk, not every day, but be able to say, hey, you know, I got a quarterback change. Like, how do you do this? You know, we have guys that, you know, we have pitchers that we paid money to, but might not be living up to that. And we have other guys that we're not paying a lot of money, but they're doing great. Like, how do we do this? How do you handle this? And to have guys that can communicate and talk, it's so helpful, because there's not a lifeline for a head coach. And to be able to reach out to another coach of a major team, it's so helpful, and it makes us all better.
That's really true. I think the other thing with the front offices, we do a lot of things together as well. And I think, to be perfectly candid, it's easier if you're not playing in the same stadium.
So much easier.
A lot easier, because I mean, it's just there's a natural tension. I don't know if tension's the right word, maybe a natural sort of conflicting interests when and there's only a couple of them left, right? Where one left, I
one's
guess.
in Oakland.
Yeah.
Where a baseball team and a football team share a stadium, because by definition, you know, football wants a bigger stadium, and you can sit high up, and and obviously when it comes to clubhouses and everything, they have their interests. Baseball would like smaller, more intimate, and have their own interests around clubhouses and common areas, et cetera. So there can be, I think, the teams that haven't gotten on all that well, baseball, football, sometimes it's around the facility, and when we're in separate facilities, it's a lot easier. Now, Jed wasn't the owner of the team when we shared a candlestick, so it wasn't with Jed, but and obviously the personalities matter too.
And now that you're separated, you can be BFFs.
BFF, yeah. But we weren't together at Candlestick. Yeah.
Jed, what do you think is the primary driver for your success in this business? Is it talent? Is it finding Jim Harbaugh?
I mean, I think it's having talent work together. I mean, we see with one of Larry's biggest competitors, they paid for a lot of talent in Southern California, and it didn't necessarily work out. You can pay for talent, but I think the way the Niners are built right now, the way the Giants are built right now, you're building from within, you're supplementing through free agency, and you've got big personalities, but they're working together. And that's the key, is making sure that they work together, and you know that the team comes first. And I think we've done a great job, and obviously the Giants have done a great job, and I think the results show on the field.
Yeah, I would say that's exactly right. In a word, it's culture. And it's hard. You could sit there and try to lay out a culture, but you have to live it. And like Jim Harbaugh, Bruce Bochy is, he's part psychologist. So you have a 25-man team, and he's got 25 different psychologies, yet it's still a meritocracy. And if a guy is in a slump, he knows he may be coming out of the game. And it's not, what are you doing? It's, hey, let's take a couple of days, push the pause button, and you're coming back. And so everybody kind of feels they know their role, and there's like a roadmap, and there's a culture created. I think that, and the 49ers are an example of this, I think a key relationship in any organization is the relationship between the coach or the manager and the general manager, so that they're talking. And the general manager may be the final decision maker on the roster, but he gets the input from the coach or the manager. Same thing with the manager in baseball, and I think in football too, decides on the lineup card, decides who's going to play the game, but the general manager is privy to the discussion. So it's not sort of and there have been teams, you've probably covered some over the years, where the GM and the manager coach weren't on the same page. That's a problem.
It's horrible.
That's a huge problem.
And they might both be really, really good at what they do, but if they can't work together, then it's, this is the guy that we like as a scouting department, but the coaches are they just don't want him. So they're going to make sure he doesn't have a good opportunity to play. And that's where the personalities come into the game, and you need to make sure that those are managed properly.
And how do you get that? How do you get everyone on the same page, especially in a business where egos are huge, not just on the field, but behind the scenes? And I mean, the Giants, made some news a couple years ago by having the Giants Way written up. Is it something like that you actually have to have a tangible kind of manifesto, or does it stem from you guys at the top?
I mean, I think anything stems from the top, but you're only as good as the people that you have with you. And I mean, I remember when we hired Jim, everybody was all excited because you hired the coach that did so well at Stanford. And for us, that was a piece of what we looked at, but we didn't pursue Jim the same way all the other suitors did. We pursued him and said, this is what the 49ers are. This is the structure. We'd love for you to come here. We know that you live in the area. We know that you might not want to leave. And if this is what you want to sign up for, take your time, go talk to your alma mater. Talk to whoever else is out there and suiting you, because we want you here, and we're not going to pay you the amount of money that you deserve unless you want to be here. And that's really how you can't force somebody to sign a contract. And I think that's what happens, where it's easy to say, well, it's about the money and we're going to give you a big contract and you're going to come here and you're going to be great. That's not how it works. You have to want to do it. And I think that's the hard part about Larry and my job, is paying people a lot of money, but still making sure that they're hungry and that they're doing it for the love of the game. And I think both teams have that culture going on right now.
Right.
I think that's right. I think, it's not to sound like the Reverend Hunter Pence, but I think there's a caring for each other that either develops or doesn't develop in an organization, and I think winning organizations have that. I remember, just an example, the playoff games last October on the road. So Cincinnati, Detroit, Cincinnati, St. Louis, Detroit. A few of us, about 7 or 8 guys, would show up in Bochy's office in the road games maybe 30 minutes before game time. Okay, so batting practice is over. The players are doing their thing in the clubhouse and locker room, and Bochy's there, and it would be a couple of the scouts. It would be Brian Sabian. It would be Dick Tidrow, some of the front office people. And the purpose of getting together with Bochy was not to grind about the game, not to talk about the matchups. It was just basically
Drink wine, come on.
well, that's after the game, but it was just to relax, to relax each other. I mean, Bochy's, it's a tense moment, especially many of those were elimination games, 3 of them in Cincinnati and 2 in St. Louis, 1 in St. Louis, on the road. And, it was Brian telling stories of his Yankee days and Tidrow talking about, telling jokes. I mean, it was just to cut the tension and to relax. And I think, and that was really sort of in a roundabout way, it was basically saying, hey, we care about you. We really think you're tremendous, and just relax, and you're good no matter what happens, kind of thing. So it is a caring about each other, and we're all in it together thing.
But your guys played with ease, and it came through, and that's what people don't understand about sports. Like, you can't turn it on and turn it off, but when you can go out there and play in a tense moment, and you're relaxed, and your opponent isn't, you just have such a better chance of success. And you saw that with the Giants through games where, as a fan, you're looking and it's like, okay, they might not have a chance. And both of our teams put our fans through torture, which we apologize for. But it does make for good TV.
The new marketing word, torture.
Yeah, it makes for great TV, reality TV. Obviously, one of the greatest keys to economic success in this business is stadiums, and we've seen a lot of stadium issues going on in the Bay Area. Larry, for someone who's already been through this, what words of advice do you have to those who are about to or aspire to have a new stadium?
Well, there's not much advice to give now because Jed is the real heavy lifting. He's accomplished beautifully, and the organization has, and he's under construction, and it's going to be fantastic. But I think just in general, you got to set out a vision and get everybody with that vision. And Jed's done that. What we tried to do, we talk about this a lot. The best $50,000 we ever spent was we created a model of what was to be Pacific Bell Park at its inception. A couple of years before the park was built, was under construction. And we took that model, traveled that model from office building lobbies to BART stations all over town, all over the community, and gave people sort of a vision of what the ballpark could be. Because there were people with us at the time were saying that San Francisco's not a baseball town, and it's going to be, or you'll do okay for a couple of years, and then there's going to be a honeymoon, and then you'll fall apart. And we had to defeat that. We had to defeat the notion of a honeymoon. We had to say that this is not lifting up Candlestick Park with a crane and dropping it down at 3rd and King. And
Thank
that's,
God.
this is going to be a beautiful brick-clad park with setbacks, and you're going to be proud to live in this neighborhood. You're going to be proud to come to the game, and it's going to be the games, and it's going to be something more than just, for the hardcore fans. So I think it's creating that vision and of whatever your park is, and certainly Jed has done that beautifully as we approach the opening.
What are the things that keep you awake at night?
7-month-old.
Well, besides the 7-month-old, about your team, what worries?
I don't worry because I think our guys embrace a culture of failure. And I think that was shown very clearly last year with Alex and Cap, where you have a guy that takes you to the playoffs, takes you to, almost getting to the Super Bowl, plays even better at the start of the next season, gets dinged, and then you decide to switch horses midstream. And, that's something that I think our team really embraces is let's try to get better no matter what it is and always push for that. I have a lot of confidence in Jim and Trent. So there's really nothing that's keeping me up. We're in the process of doing our permanent financing. Once that is in place, we know that nothing is going to take our financing away from the next 25, 30 years of the stadium. So I feel really, really good right now.
And you? You don't have a 7-month-old.
No. Grandkids will be next, maybe.
Not
Keep me up at night. I tell you, baseball's a little different season. It's a long season, and we had a tough road trip. Lost 4 out of 5, and then we came back and won 2 out of 3. So it kind of it dissolved a little. But when you see a team have a stretch, and you're going to have stretches, and we had those stretches in each of the World Championship years. Your fear factor kicks in and says, oh, is this 4 out of 5 going to turn into 14 out of 15? You don't feel that'll be the case, but you just don't know. So that's one of the things that keeps me up at night. I think that, but the team, what it doesn't keep me up at night is our front office and the people that work at the Giants, because I'm very proud of the loyalty and the culture we have in the front office and the folks that are there, and many of them have been there for a couple of decades, going back to the previous owner, to Bob Lurie, and so no relation to Daniel, and so I think that the reason I sleep reasonably well is that we have such good people in the organization that are loyal and committed. And then, of course, on the baseball side, Brian and his guys, if things are tough, they figure it out. In baseball, I don't know how different it is in football. I think it's somewhat different in that 162 games, the sort of the motto or the truism that we use is the first 50 games, which we're about at that juncture now, see what you got. See how the team shapes up, because no matter how you expect it's going to be in spring training, it's probably going to be different. So first 50 games, see what you have. Next 50 games, do something about it, including at the trade deadline. And then the last 62 games, play like heck. So it's an iterative process in baseball. And so let's say we were not playing, we were under 500. There's ways to tinker and do things at the trade deadline or before the trade deadline to improve it.
Larry, what do you think the role of the public sector should be in supporting sports teams and supporting in all sorts, not just financially, but in all sorts of ways?
Well, I think there's been a sort of a sea change, and we were maybe at the beginning, at the kind of the cusp of the sea change. When we built our ballpark, and I'm talking about public financing of stadiums, when we built our ballpark, decided to do so privately, we're really kind of the first in that generation because we were on the heels of Camden Yards, Coors Field in Denver, Camden Yards in Baltimore, and Jacobs Field in Cleveland, all publicly financed ballparks. And I'll never forget, we acquired the team in '92, and we had to get a new ballpark built. And the previous owner, Bob, had tried like heck, but 4 times had been defeated at the ballot box. And so we did a fair amount of research, and we found that 75% of the fans said, of the people, not the fans, the people of San Francisco said, San Francisco Giants, you need a new ballpark. That same research done by Peter Hart said 75% of the fans said, need a new ballpark, we don't want to pay for it. So I think whether we like it or not, because stadiums are ballpark stadiums are largely viewed as private enterprises, that the role of public financing of ballparks and stadiums, and probably, especially in California, is going to be, is what's going forward is minimal. What do I think the role should be? I think that public financing, the public sector can play an important role with teams, but I think it's tough in economies like the one we're in or hopefully getting out of. But I think there's other ways the public sector can play roles with franchises. And I think but more importantly, quite frankly, is I think that the franchises, we're in a lot of different businesses and initiatives, and we're really in the community service business. We wear San Francisco across our chest, and we have to figure out ways to create positive change in our community because the fans believe the team is more than just another business. Players are role models. They look up to the kids look up to them. So we've got to find a way to strike that balance where there may be public sector support, but we've got to give back equally. And that's a balance. We think about that every day, and we have an active community service department, as do the 49ers, and an active foundation, as does the 49ers, to try to fulfill that.
Jed?
I think it's important that you have a good public-private partnership. And it depends on where you are and what the feeling is in the community. I think Larry said in California, it's a little bit harder to have the public underwrite your program. With originally Pac-Bell, you had great infrastructure that was already there. You had public transit that was there. That's a huge investment by the city, by the state, to make sure that those things are in place, which I don't know how well the ballpark would work if you didn't have public transit right there. With Santa Clara, there's great freeway access, there's great road access, there's public transit access that's already been put in. They're putting in some public equity, not the same percentage as a Dallas or an Indianapolis or some of those stadiums, but they're participating in that. So you have to have the right balance, because if it's just the Giants doing a privately financed building and there's no participation from the city of San Francisco, it's not going to work. And if it's just the city writing a check and saying, here we go, like we wrote a check, and now you guys can go play in your publicly financed building, and there's nothing that the team is doing back for the city, then that's not going to work either. And I think you see that in some baseball parks now and some football parks now where they're all publicly or all privately financed, and you've got cities and teams fighting with each other. That's not what you want. You want to have the right partnership, and it sort of depends on the market.
There's a lot of talk about your new stadium being on the cutting edge of technology, and I'm just wondering how both of you see technology changing both the stadium experience, the in-game experience, your businesses.
Well, luckily looking out, there aren't many people that are surfing they're smartphones right now, so we must be doing a decent job. But a lot of the times when you're at a game, you know, it's not that you don't want to be present. That's right. But you're trying to find a better way to get involved in the game because the home experience is so great. So if you can bring the benefit of your home 60-inch flat screen TV and all the great analysis that you get on TV, if you can bring that to the stadium and you can have a smarter way to order food, to spend money, to buy things, to have tickets, if you can be ticketless, cashless, you can plug into replays immediately, have different camera angles, have a different experience inside the ballpark. I think that's where we're going because that's what we're doing right now in our daily lives. So if you have a stadium experience that doesn't capture all the wonderful things about technology, I think you're going to have less and less people going to the ballparks in the future.
And do you think it will grow? Will the NFL grow that way through technology? I mean,
So-
I don't know if the NFL could grow any more than it has, but
So, I mean, I look at it as sort of twofold. I think first, you need to protect yourself against fans not coming to the game. You need to make sure that you make it easier for fans to come to the game. But once you're there, the easier you make it to spend money to get involved in the game, to get connected to the game, it's like anything else. If it's a good experience and it's a good product, fans will pay for it. And I think that's the key is figuring out how do you do that, but you make the process seamless. Whatever you use, whatever iPhone, Android phone, whatever it is that you're using, we want to be agnostic in our stadium. We want to make sure that you can come and define your own experience. And we've talked about this with kids coming to our stadiums. You know, me going with a 7-month-old is a much different experience than me and my wife going by herself. So it's a different experience, and I think technology just enhances that. And it's how do you allow technology to enhance that experience?
Larry, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're in a situation where you know, people consume information differently in today's world, obviously, and that we can't fight that. We want to play along with that. There's a lot of convenience staying home and watching a game in the luxury of your home, a 2-screen, a 3-screen experience potentially when you're in your living room. So a lot of people talk about in our business competition for the entertainment dollar, and there's that, but there's also competition for the entertainment hour. How do you make a 3-hour, 4-hour, sometimes people coming from the Sacramento, Southern Oregon, the Central Valley, 5, 6, 7 hours round trip? How do you make that compelling to them? And you have to create an environment in the ballpark that includes content, the access to content, that makes them feel comfortable and it exceeds the home environment. And there are lots of ways to do that. Baseball's interesting in the sense that there are so many games, and it's such a statistically laden sport that you have a lot of people that are between pitches, between innings, whatever, looking things up and what happened, or keeping score on their iPad, et cetera. So there's a lot of ways to tap into that. And so we're in the technology business. I mean, plain and simple, we're in the technology business, we're in the content business, and if we're not ahead of the curve, people will stay home.
Social media, Jed. Jed and I have fun on Twitter together. The night of the draft, which I will continue to assert, is a really, really boring night because people get really amped up for it and nobody knows what's going to happen for usually about 3 years. So I tweeted out that I was like, oh, here I am at the 49ers on the most overhyped night of the sports calendar. And Jed immediately tweeted back, why don't you go home then? So all evening we had a little back and forth, and when they moved up to draft their first round pick, I said the 49ers have moved up, and then he tweeted back, no, we just did it so you could go home early. But it was all good. By the end of the night, he'd invited me to dinner at French Laundry, so we're
That Tim Kawakami will
with
pay
Tim
for.
Kawakami. But what is the role of social media? I mean, you're really into it and really good on it. Do you see it changing the role of sports teams within their community, or your role as a CEO?
Well, I think it just changes the interaction. I mean, I think Larry hit it home very, very well that we aren't just sports teams. We're a beacon in the community that people look up to, especially when times are rough. You know, when your team wins the World Series, when your team competes for a Super Bowl, it's great. But for us to be able to share that experience with people, you know, I can do that through Twitter. I can do that through Facebook. I can do that in social media, unlike just posting something on our website. And you have a personal relationship with however many people follow you, and you can answer questions, you can get involved. And I think it's just the next iteration of how do teams get more connected to their fans. And it doesn't have to be season ticket holders. A lot of people that follow me or talk to me on Twitter, they're not season ticket holders, but they're huge stakeholders in the organization. And you just want to make sure that you can connect with them.
Larry?
Yeah, look,
Get on
social
Twitter.
media. What's that?
Get on Twitter.
This guy, get me on Twitter. No, I know. Stacy wants me on Twitter. I'm getting on Twitter. You know, look, social media is a huge part of what we do, of how we communicate now with our fans. Everything from, hey, there's 500 tickets left for tonight's game. It's Bruce Lee bobblehead night, Barry Zito bobblehead, whatever. We get that information out quickly, and it's critically important, and it's informative. It's a marketing tool. Some of the players are on, and generally it works well when the players are on it. Although that is generally, operative word generally, you know, because players will put some things out, tweet some things out that may not be the best.
Really?
And so we actually have, in spring training, we have a woman comes in, a former member of the media, who comes in and actually does a tutorial for the players. And it's really a protective thing for the players, because our players have to realize, that, all being celebrities, that anywhere they go, basically everybody walking down the street has a camera now. And if they're in a restaurant, and if they're going into a bathroom, wherever they're going, there is somebody there that may take a picture of them in whatever mode. I'll never forget the night of the 2010 parade, championship parade, and this was an unfortunate thing. And Pablo Sandoval had been talking about how he's going to really hunker down and diet and get slimmed down. The night of the parade, Pablo and about a dozen of his family members went to a restaurant called Buca de Beppa. Anybody ever been there? Buca de Beppa? Okay. They don't specialize in small portions. And so for dessert, one of the members of Pablo's family ordered something called the chocolate bomb, which was, you know, one of those huge mud pie kind of concoctions. And they put it in front of Pablo, celebrating with candles, celebrating the World Series. Well, there was another patron in the restaurant that took a picture of the chocolate bomb in front of Pablo and posted it on Facebook and said, "Nice diet, Pablo." So those kinds of things happen. And, but look, it's the currency in which so many of our fans, especially the younger fans, but not just the younger fans, you know, operate, and you got to play into it, and I think it's generally a very positive thing.
Well, we are just about out of time. I would like to say that as a cynical journalist, there were two things I was pretty sure would never happen in the Bay Area. The Giants would never win a World Series, and the 49ers would never get a new stadium. And thanks to these two men, I've been proven wrong, so have all the other cynics. So thanks, you guys.
Can
It's
you
been
say
a...
that we'll never win another Super Bowl?
No, I haven't said that.
We'd like you to.
Oh, okay. Can I say the Warriors, the A's will never move to San Jose?
I'm not going there. We're not going there.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.